Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. In this video, I'll be reviewing this phone right here. This right here is a Samsung Galaxy J1 2016. This phone, like its name suggests, was released in January of 2016 and it used to cost $175 at launch. It features a quad-core Spectrum SC9830 which comes clocked in at 1.3 GHz. Graphical processing is done by a Mali 400 GPU. It also has 1GB of RAM and 8GB of storage, a 2050 mAh battery, a 5MP main camera and 2MP selfie camera, and it has a 4.5-inch 480x800 Super AMOLED display. Let's see what this phone can still do today. Let's first unbox this phone. The unboxing experience was pretty decent. The box that this phone comes in is pretty well designed and unboxing this phone felt pretty premium. Inside the box you can find the phone, some manuals, a charging brick, a USB to micro USB cable and some in-ears. Overall, back in 2016 it seems like you definitely got your money's worth. Now it's time to set up this phone. The setup process was pretty straightforward and pretty quickly I was launched into Android 5.1.1 with a Samsung skin over it. In terms of bloatware, Samsung has definitely installed a bit too much non-Samsung apps on this phone for my liking, as this phone comes standard with apps like Galaxy Gift Africa, Opera Mini and Facebook. Overall, the rest of the software experience is not too bad, the phone feels pretty snappy. Time to install all of the apps that I'll be testing. I could install almost every app except for Discord. Overall, browsing the Play Store was a very good experience, as the phone still feels pretty fast. Now I'll put in my SIM card and an SD card and let's get to testing. First off, I tried using WhatsApp. WhatsApp was for sure still usable. During the initial setup I ran into some little hiccups, but after using the app for a bit, it felt pretty smooth. In Snapchat, the age of this phone started to show a bit more. When sending or receiving a snap, the phone could sometimes lag a bit, but overall using social media on this phone is still absolutely doable. Testing out YouTube, you can still watch YouTube on this phone. Even though the app itself can be a bit laggy at times, watching videos in 1080p is no issue for this phone, and the speakers on this phone don't really sound all that bad either. This is how the speakers sound. Alright, first off, it was time to set this phone up. After factory resetting this phone, it launched me straight into a Spanish page about Google with no further setup. For ports, this phone has a 3.5mm aux jack on the top side and a micro USB connector on the bottom. Time to test out the camera. I'll be comparing this phone's camera with the camera in my main phone, a Galaxy S21. Starting off with this first image of some AirPods, the S21 manages to capture a bit more colors, but in terms of details the J1's picture is quite good. In this next image, the S21 manages to capture a whole lot more color, and the J1 could not focus on the plant, so the foreground is blurry. And moving on to a bright picture of some outside scenery, the picture that the J1 took looks just a bit more washed out in terms of color, but back in 2016 this would definitely do the job just fine. Recording some video is a point where the J1 struggles. This recording is quite low resolution, although this camera can switch from bright to dark quite fast. Testing out the selfie camera, the S21's picture is of course a lot sharper, but the image that the J1 made isn't half bad. Now with this image of some flowers, the J1 does a very good job. It's unsurprisingly missing the heavy color post-processing that the S21 does, but the overall scene is sharp and pretty color accurate. Making a picture of these bushes show that the J1 is struggling due to the sunlight on the back half, but it's still a pretty good result, and even in the S21's picture it's struggling with the sunlight. Testing out some outside video recording shows just how poor the video quality is from this phone. The pictures are pretty high quality, but video recording is definitely this camera's weak point. Testing out the front camera, like you can see, it's not all that special, but it can get the job done. Recording a video with the front camera, however, is pretty bad. It can record up to 480p, but back in 2016 for a budget phone, it's acceptable. Now testing out the microphone in this phone is quite good. This is how the microphone sounds. Alright, this is the microphone review of the Samsung Galaxy J1 2016. I have pretty high hopes for this microphone as it's in a relatively modern phone, and I'm curious as to how it sounds. Now opening up Spotify, I could still use Spotify on this phone without any issues. Although navigating through Spotify definitely wasn't the fastest, the app never crashed, you just need to have a bit more patience. Time to benchmark this phone. Running past mark performance test, this phone got an overall score of 2135, with a score of 8583 in the CPU test, and a score of 2063 and 620 in the 2D and 3D graphic test. Let's test out some games. Starting off with Dune, this game was sadly unplayable. This phone was way too laggy for it to register my inputs, which caused me to die multiple times. Playing a different game, 8-Ball Pool, this game was actually playable. Even though this game was quite choppy, there was no input lag like in Dune, which made it pretty playable. Let's talk about the screen in this phone. This 480 by 800 Super AMOLED display is quite good. Even though it doesn't have that high of a resolution, at this size and price range it really isn't that big of an issue. Cranking up the brightness to the max causes this screen to go very bright, so in terms of the screen I really don't have anything to complain about it. I then went on to testing out the battery in this phone. Watching YouTube on the brightest brightness setting, this phone lasted almost 6 hours with the original battery, which is very impressive. And with that, time to give my final opinion. Is this phone a good purchase in 2023? I would say yes, but only if you're looking for a basic phone. Running WhatsApp is still a good experience, the cameras aren't terrible, and at least with my example, the battery life that these phones get is also quite good. But if you're looking for a phone which also needs to run some games and have your social media apps, I would not recommend this one. First off, due to the low 8GB of internal storage, and due to the phone's poor performance when you try to run anything heavier than WhatsApp. It's definitely limited by its somewhat weak CPU. So overall, if you're on a tight budget and you need a basic phone, this phone's made for you. If you want to do just more than basic tasks, I would recommend looking for something a bit more modern. And with that, this video comes to an end. Thanks so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!